Good morning. Hello. It is Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. This is your problem of the day and writing prompt. We're going to go ahead and get started with our problem of the day. All right. The number lines model two different fractions. Here are our number lines. Which comparison of these fractions is true? 1/2 is greater than 1 whole. 2/8 is greater than 1/8. 1/8 equals 2/8. 2/8 is less than 1/8. So before we go to answer of these questions, let's go ahead and compare these two fractions above using the model. So the first thing I want to do is figure out how many parts there are in this fraction. We know that from 0 to 1, this is a whole. So if I was to draw it out, it would be a circle, and that would be a whole, right? Pretend that's all shaded in. But I'm trying to figure out how many parts are in this whole. Well, we can do that by counting the intervals. So let's do that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I know that this represents 8/8, and I know that in the numerator and the denominator are the same number. That equals 1 whole. Okay. So because I know that this is 8/8, I can turn each of these numbers into a fraction. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So I know that from 0 here, this is 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8. Great. We have that labeled here. So now what I need to do is compare these fractions. So here I'm skipping 1/8, 2/8, and I stop here. Great. I know, I'm going to draw above here, I know that these two arrows are representing 2/8. Great. So that's going to be one of my fractions, 2/8. Let's go ahead and look at this bottom one. Here, I'm only skipping one interval. So I know that this part of the fraction is only 1/8. I have that written right here. I'm going to circle that. 1/8. Okay, so now I have 1/8. Now I need to compare these two fractions. Okay, so if I have 2/8 and 1/8, I have this drawn right here in front of me. I see that 2/8 is further away from 0 than 1/8 is. Therefore, I know that 2/8 is greater than 1/8. And we can remember because the crocodile or the alligator is always going to eat the larger number. I could also draw this in terms of a picture. So those are my wholes. Say I wanted to break this up into 8s. This is not perfect, but that's okay. That has 8 parts. And this has 8 parts, just like my number line. So I'm turning the number line into 2 pizzas, we'll say. Let's say this pizza is going to represent 2/8, just like the top number line represents 2/8. And then I shaded in 1/8 and then 2/8. Great. Let's say this bottom one represents 1/2, just like our bottom number line represents, 1/8, just like our bottom number line represents 1/8. I'm only going to shade in 1 because I only have 1/8, one part of those 8 holes. Now we can look at these two and compare. Which did we take more from? We took more from 2/8. Therefore, 2/8 is greater than 1/8. Just like we see here. This 2/8 is further away from 0, so it's greater than this 1/8. The trick is to figure out that this is 2/8 and this is 1/8, and that's why we counted our fractions. That's why we counted our intervals. So then I can come, which comparison of these fractions is true? 1/2 is greater than 1 whole. Well, we're not comparing 1/2s and 1 wholes, so we can get rid of this. 2/8 is greater than 1/8. That looks exactly what I drew here. That looks looking like a right answer. 1/8 is equal to 2/8. Well, we know that's not true because we see here that 2/8 is larger than 1/8, so those cannot be equal to each other. So we can cross that one out. 2/8 is less than 1/8. So here's the one they're trying to see if we know that 2/8 is greater, because these two numbers are the same as these two numbers, right? But we know that 2/8 is greater than 1/8, and we know because it's further away from 0 and it represents more when we draw it. So we know that 2/8 is not less than 1/8. We know that 2/8 is greater than 1/8. So G is our answer. Awesome job if you followed along with that. Some good fraction practice. Okay. Here is our writing prompt. Writing prompt. You are given the task to design a city. Describe what you will include in the city that you are going to create. You may want to answer some of these questions. What kind of stores will there be? Where will people get their food? Who will live in the city? Will there be any rules in the city? What will the buildings be made out of? Will there be any space outside or parks? Will there be trains or planes or cars or bicycles? You may also tell me, where is the city located? How many people live there? There's so many options of what you can include in this. I want you to be creative, and if you'd like to draw a picture of your city, you may also do that. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with your city. It may be your dream city. If you could live anywhere, what would that city look like? Maybe there's an athletic stadium there. Maybe there's a giant pool. You can be totally creative and come up with anything that you want. All right, that's your problem of the day and writing prompt for today, Tuesday. I hope you have an amazing day and you work hard and you have fun.